Thanks for listening to Baxie's Musical Podcast. If you like what you hear today, be sure to follow the show, like it, review it, share it aggressively with everyone you know. Also, be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok for regular updates on future guests. Today, we're brought to you by Metro Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram of Chicopee. Stop by their state-of-the-art dealership next to BJ's in Big Y on Memorial Drive, or go to metrojeep.com and drive home in your new Metro Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram today.
It's Baxie's Musical Podcast.
Do you remember those old TV commercials where two people would haphazardly smash into each other? One guy would get chocolate and the other guy's peanut butter, and the other guy would get his peanut butter into the other guy's chocolate. These were two great tastes that taste great together. But before that happened, there was a time when nobody would have ever dreamed to combine those two great things at the same time. Today, barring a deadly peanut allergy, I think we can all agree that the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup is a magically delicious confection. Well, the same goes with blending different styles of music. Without somebody having the balls or creativity to do it, you might think that combining certain things would never work. That is until somebody actually does it. For example, in 1979, the late singer-guitarist Jeffrey Lee Pierce decided to take traditional American blues and country music and blend it with the music that was emerging from the LA punk scene, and then forming a band known as the Gun Club. By today's perspective, that might not seem all that unusual, but in 1979, it was very unusual. Other bands may have tried to blend other styles of music with punk by then, but combining it with the Delta blues, not quite, and certainly not to the same degree as the Gun Club. In 1981, the Gun Club would release their groundbreaking debut album, Fire of Love. This was an amazing record that not only influenced dozens and dozens of bands around the world, this would go on to be listed as one of the greatest albums of all time, if not one of the greatest albums of the 1980s. Same thing with their 1982 follow-up album, Miami. While more albums would follow before Jeffrey's death in 1996, nothing quite matched the unhinged, raw energy of those first two records. Now, I'd like to think that one of the reasons for this was because of drummer Terry Graham. Terry Graham was not only the drummer for the Gun Club, he was also the drummer for the Bags, one of the earliest punk bands in Los Angeles at the time, a band that was highlighted in the film The Decline of Western Civilization. He even played with the Cramps. Now, what you need to know about all of this is where these bands fall and how they fit into the larger picture. Because in a very real way, Terry's connections either or indirectly take you to bands like The Damned, The Circle Jerks, The Sisters of Mercy, Black Flag, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, and in a very real way, while seeming to be an outlier, the Gun Club connects a lot of those dots. And Terry Graham has found himself in the middle of all of it and participating in some of the most groundbreaking music of its time. Terry talks about that in his 2017 biography, Punk Like Me, Hollywood 1977 to 1985. He's also just started a new podcast of his own called Electric Angel Lounge, which is now available on YouTube. So to get the chance to talk to drummer Terry Graham about all of that stuff is a real treat. He's my guest today on Baxie's Musical Podcast. Good to see you.
Oh, man. Good to see you, man.
Absolutely.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm really good. I got to say, this is like the third or fourth interview that has literally fallen into my lap thanks to Tex Mosley.
Really? I know, right?
He contacted me and said, oh, you got to talk to my friend Terry Gray. And I'm like, yeah, I do. I don't know what he's been telling you guys, but I feel like I owe him some sort of finder's fee.
Oh, I know. Tex is just, man, the guy's so supportive, so helpful, you know, and then he gets on stage and he just kicks ass.
Yeah.
You know, I love that guy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm learning to love him too. By the way, don't tell him about the finder's fee, just in case he actually wants one. But
I won't say a thing. No, I'm not going to.
You know, it's so funny. You know, I've been doing this podcast for about 5.5 years, but for the last 18 months or so, maybe even a little bit longer, I can't tell you how many times I've heard people cite the Gun Club as a really important and formative band. I mean, it's like, you know, people are finally discovering who the Gun Club was and what they're all about. I mean, I listened to, you know, Fire of Love back in college, you know, 40 some odd years ago. How amazed are you that the band is suddenly, generating all this newfound recognition and respect?
Completely and totally amazed. Because, when we did that record, the first record, Fire of Love, I mean, it was almost like we were refugees from kind of these other bands, these OG punk bands in LA, and we all knew Jeff. I had known Jeff since day one. And there was some doubt. What's Jeff going to be able to do? I don't know. Probably nothing. But what else are we doing? Probably nothing. Okay, so you know, so we just kind of fall into this. Now, I had gone to see them at the Hong Kong Cafe, and they had just changed their name to Gun Club, thanks to Keith Morris, and they were called Creeping Ritual before that. So I go and I see them. I'm with my bass player in the Bags, Rob Ritter, incredible musician, such a good bass player. And we're just like literally trolling clubs. Anybody need a drummer and bass player? Anybody? Anybody? Um, and we just weren't sure what to do. It's 1980 and it's already kind of post-punk. And I watched them play, and I really had no expectation. I thought, oh God, all right, well, we'll just watch them. Let's get it over with. And even though it was the crudest stuff, so was the Ramones when I first heard that.
Right.
I mean, I thought that was the end of civilization when I heard that record. I had just gone to see Yes at a 14,000 seat stadium a few months before, and I'm listening to the Ramones because I'd seen this article at the college library in the Village Voice. And I'm like, okay, well, what is this? I'll figure it out. I don't know. But of course, the Ramones, I couldn't stop playing it. That was the problem. It's like, God, this is shit, but I have to play it. I have to play it. And then pretty soon, a month later, oh, okay, it's the greatest thing ever made. All right, fine.
It's funny how people have the same story. Like that, you can't wait for an Alan White drum solo, but then all of a sudden, the Ramones come along. It's like, well, fuck that drum solo.
Yeah. Well, it's like, it's just latent in a lot of us at the time, this kind of frustration, and we didn't even know it because, I mean, what else was there? I mean, there was good music, obviously, throughout the 70s, but you had to kind of, search for it. You had to kind of know where to look, you had to get the imports section at the record store. But so I'm listening to Jeff and his drummer Brad was a friend of mine. Everybody was a friend of mine in the band. And I'm like, this is crude, but man, this is kind of cool. I'm hearing something here that I don't know. I'm looking at Rob and he's totally non-committal. He's not so convinced, but I'm like, there's something there, man. So I go up to Jeff after the show and I was like, dude, this is pretty good, man. That's not bad. If you ever need a drummer and a bass player, he said, well, yeah, actually I do. I said, really? Yeah, right now. They just quit. So I looked at Rob. Rob's like, okay. And so, boom, we were in Gun Club.
I think what's amazing about the Gun Club, and they were not the only band doing this, but there was at the time there was like a lot of a bunch of blended efforts, to try to take punk into to new directions. I mean, you had the Cramps and the Blasters and X, and they're kind of fusing punk with with rockabilly, but the Gun Club. It reaches back even further to a really earnest fusion of blues and country. I mean, to the best of my knowledge, I mean, the Gun Club were really kind of the first to do it that way, and certainly the first to do it as well as they did. Maybe not initially, but there wasn't anyone really doing that back then.
Well, yeah, and Jeff. Think about Jeff. This guy was a record collector. This guy knew his stuff. Jeff is really high IQ dude, okay? And I remember him talking about, I went to this thrift store in Compton. I went to that thrift store in the middle of nowhere. I did all these things. I got this record. I got that record. I got this record. Because back then, you're talking late 70s, early 80s. That stuff was still sitting in thrift stores.
Yeah.
And so he was really good, and he just knew his stuff. He had some friends around him, Bass Freddy and some other people who also really, really knew their stuff. They knew their roots. They knew their history. And for Jeff, he just had that spark. I'm going to take a Delta blues song, let's just pick Robert Johnson, say, with really difficult because Robert Johnson's timing is kind of weird and it's fast, it's slow, it's all. And he's like, yeah, I think I can put that in the meat grinder of punk and it would be original. It would be cool. It would be something no one else is doing and original in that sense. And so, yeah, he was the first one to do that. And people would sort of, come to our shows, the 9 or 10 who came, and just kind of scratch their heads, and it's like, oh, your mom's going to love this. This is great. You guys, very, very good effort. I'm so proud of you. It's like, what are you doing?
Right. So, I mean, so was that the reaction to this at first? I mean, obviously, whenever you try something new, there's always some hesitancy and people who are listening. What was that initial reaction? Were people getting it, or did it take time for it to kind of catch on?
They didn't get it, but thankfully there was enough energy because Rob and I had just been in the Bags, which was nothing but a high energy OG punk band. And so we brought that. And then, of course, Kid Congo had, the Cramps picked him out of the lineup very soon after Rob and I joined. So then we got Ward Dodson, and he was all into roots and rockabilly too, but he had a real edge to him, and he loved that stuff. So I think the energy carried the day, but people couldn't quite figure out, like, well, what's the concept here? Not that anybody was thinking enough to even want to figure it out, and I don't blame them. But it just seemed like the more we played, the more they got it. And then when the actual vinyl came out, and that hit the East Coast, in particular Boston, and then it hit Europe, I don't know what it was. They just seemed to get it. We didn't have to explain anything. It was just like, we know what this is.
I think when I heard Fire of Love the very first time, and if you just based the whole history of the band on the first side of that record, it's Sex Beat, For the Love of Ivy, She's Like Heroin to Me, you're Preaching the Blues, like you talked about the Robert Johnson cover. I mean, it's so incredibly dynamic and sincere. I mean, that to me that's the amazing thing about it. There's a lot of bands that try to do like a fusion of different genres, and sometimes it hits and sometimes it hits a brick frickin' wall. There was something so honest about how each of you played your parts, Jeffrey included, but even the drumming. I mean, just like She's Like Heroin to me is like, it reaches these pinnacles and these lower parts, and it's just such a beautiful record. I mean, that's back in 1981, when you're talking about punk records, that was dynamics was not necessarily the language back then.
No, it just wasn't on the bingo card for back then. But I think part of it was that we in our isolation of the time, of that transitory period between, kind of the original punk and then getting into the early 80s. And also just all of us were not in any famous or well-known anything. And I think in that kind of isolation, in a sense, almost, in your room, certainly your rehearsal room, we could do that and not really think and not really peg it to anything outside of us. Is this right? Is this wrong? Is this insulting to the blues? Because, boy, there were a lot of blues defenders out there who just thought we were the Antichrist. And we had intense fun telling them that, yes, we were. In fact, we're going to destroy this thing. And so, it was like a little thing that we enjoyed doing, sort of ruining their brains. How can you do that? Well, easy. Because I always figured if Robert Johnson got a chance to hear this, he'd probably like it.
Yeah.
Because the same kind of thing, Jeffrey was just channeling that same thing. And he brought it out. And like you said, I think that's a great comment that it really was honest, because we had nothing to compare it to. And we weren't trying to.
Right.
We just in our innocence, we just did this thing. And I really did like it in the beginning. I mean, I thought, okay, well, so much for that condo in Marina del Rey for me. That's not going to happen with this band. But I didn't care because it was just cool stuff. So
I've always read things about Jeff and how, in some real ways, he was a pretty polarizing and sometimes antagonizing figure.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was how you see it. I mean, obviously, he had everything, living on his sleeve in his music.
Yeah.
But as an individual, I mean, did you find him to be that way, or was it something more than that?
Well, when I first met Jeff, he would. I remember one time outside of Bomp record store in North Hollywood, and that was like um, the first punk rock record store outside of Long Beach. They had one that opened about the same time, like 77. It was early. And every Saturday, people would go there. They would have an autograph thing. I forget who it was that day, but Jeff was there. I was outside, just sitting on the street curb, actually. And he comes up, "Hey, how you doing?" And he starts talking. And I don't know what he's talking about, but he's throwing out names from the musical past, America's musical past, right and left, and this guy did this, and then he did that over there. And this guy over here came over and he changed that. And he kind of, and it's like he would just talk and talk and talk. And there were a couple of times I'd get up and kind of walk away, and Jeff's still talking. It's like I'm not there. He doesn't care. He's just got to get this out. And so I think inside of him was just, it was really a storm. It was really an explosion of this stuff to get out. And he was going to get it out one way or the other. But, and I don't know why. I mean, there's just some people that they have that. And I think, people used to say, well, he's up there kind of destroying demons on the stage. And I always felt like, no, not really. He's exorcising his own demons on stage. It's more than a cathartic thing for him. He's really trying to clean the system, and that's what this music is just an attempt to do that. And all these different songs, and all the other stuff. I can't explain it. I don't really have an explanation.
It's interesting to hear you say that because when you hear that music, and I'm thinking in both of those first two records, not just Fire of Love, but also
Sure.
Miami, there is something about his performance that it sounds like it's purging something. It's something really, really dark.
That's what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, you do totally get the sense of that, and I think in Miami you get the sense that it's even darker than the first time around. And I don't know if it was because some of the things that he was getting involved in at the time or what it was, but there's a very definitive difference between the first and second record.
Yeah, well, he I mean, why he called it Miami, I don't know. We were always attracted. We were always talking about cool, like New Orleans and Miami, these sort of dark crime centers of the U.S. As defined, way back then. Because I wanted to call it trigonometry after that book on gunfighters. And I actually owned that book, and it had been written some decades before, but I thought, well, what a perfect name for a gun club. But a lot of that album was, still part of this, the inspiration from the first. It definitely came out in different, much more kind of controlled songs, I think, in a way that were, it's really different. But again, all of it, like you said originally, all of it very honest Jeff. And what amazed me, because I don't pay attention to lyrics. I had to live through the 70s as a teenager, and if I had paid attention to lyrics, I wouldn't be able to sit here and talk now. I mean, I rode my horse through the desert with no name. It's good to be out of the rain. I mean, I would be insane. I'd be in a padded cell somewhere if I actually paid attention to that crap.
Well, you mentioned going to a Yes show. I mean, of any band with obscure lyrics.
It's just like somebody ate some bad enchiladas, okay, and then they wrote that album. So I mean, what can I say? But the thing is, so I wasn't really listening to him at first. It actually took me a few years to just sit back and listen to Jeff's lyrics. And I was so impressed. I'm like, man, this is real shit. This is real writing. It's not even song lyrics. He's like composing, his words. And I've met a lot of people since, of course, who really, really like his lyrics and And once I just really sat down and kind of listened to them, and I thought about Jeff, and I'm like, yeah, there it is. I mean, there it all, his fantasies, him as a real person, all of it kind of coming together, and then all this music just kind of comes out.
When Miami comes out, you at some point decide to leave that band. What was it about time that you said, okay, it's time to move on?
Well, Jeff, at that, and again, you can't really talk about Jeff without talking about certain things. His attitude was not very good
Mm.
toward other band members. And I don't know who whispered into his ear, "You're the lead singer. Don't worry about it. You can just get anybody." And that's fine if you want to be a solo act, especially if you want to end up in Vegas someday. And it doesn't matter who your backing band is. But it's hard to imagine a lot of bands that we know and that we've liked over the years without those core members being in that band. You could have other people, but that's who made the band. And Ward in particular felt like he just wasn't getting anything from Jeff that suggested permanence, or that suggested I can trust this or have confidence in this, and over time. And I mean, I kind of knew Jeff. I sort of knew he just like that. He didn't really make firm commitments one way or the other, but his attitude could be really just so kind of ugly and non-committal and closed off in a way. And I think more than anything, that was the result of him at that time starting to drink pretty heavily, and it just took over his life to such an extent within the next few years that it was basically impossible to get along with. You could do it for periods of time, and I know Kid Congo got along with him, but they were friends from a long time before. They could kind of bounce off each other, and I give Kid a lot of credit for having the backbone for that. But it just I don't remember, to be honest, the exact thing it was, but I was just like, okay, I can't. I just can't do this anymore. I think at the end of we did a pretty good tour in '82, and at the end of that tour, we ended it in New York actually. So we had to drive all the way back to LA, and Jeff told us that he wasn't interested, didn't really want to be bothered driving back with the band
Mm.
to LA. So he was going to stay in New York and hang out with whomever, his star friends.
Right.
And so, we just didn't qualify. Oh, but would you take my suitcase back with you to LA? So, yeah, of course, we took the suitcase. At some point, somewhere on the road, we took it out and took turns jumping up and down on it and pretty much destroying it. We kept the clothing inside. That was delivered to his house.
But the luggage was
It
ruined.
was,
Right.
yeah, we had to get out a little bit of frustration. But Jeff was just like that. I mean, I quit. I said, okay, that's it. I'm done. And then he calls me 3 months later. You want to come back? I'm like, okay, sure. It was like no big deal. It was just our little Hollywood family members. We're in bed. We're out of bed. We're in bed. We're out of bed. Yeah, of course I'll come back. Yeah, let's do it. And it finally got to a point where I couldn't do it anymore for real. But I just don't know what it was, but it was basically just that. We just wanted Jeff to kind of be our friend, but sometimes on our terms and not just on his.
Sure.
And that was difficult to do.
Did you keep in touch with him for the rest of his life, or was that impossible at that point?
No, I didn't, because they once I left in '84 for good, they told me before that, well, we're probably just going to relocate to Europe, and I'm like, I'm not doing that for anybody or anything.
Yeah.
It would have to be a big price tag. And plus I was married at the time, and I liked Los Angeles. I mean, I want to move to cold, wet Europe from nice and sunny LA. No, forget it. You're out of your mind. So I just figured, well, okay, that's the way that is. And then, that was true. I mean, Jeff just stayed over there and toured in various bands and various musicians. And it just got to, a point where there was no contact at all. But I will say, just to jump ahead a moment, that it had been 11 years since I had said anything to Jeff. Um, when I happened to see him, I was visiting Los Angeles. I was living back in Texas at the time. I was visiting LA, and I went to the Viper Room of all horrible places, which I would never have gone to even if I had lived here. Well, I say that, I probably would. But I go to the Viper Room to see whoever it was, and there's Jeff. I couldn't
Hmm.
believe it. And I remember, hearing all these things in the meantime. Oh, he's hugely overweight. Oh, he just looks like he's sick of dying. And I'm looking over there at him a few feet away. He looked totally normal. I'm
Hmm.
like, well, no, I don't get it. He looks healthy to me. I didn't see anything wrong. I didn't know. So I just walked over to him. I stuck my hand out and said, "Hey, Jeff, how you doing? Let's end this bullshit.
Yeah.
Let's stop this back and forth." And which wasn't an active, ongoing thing, but there were a few quotes from him about people that I knew and some other shit. And I hate getting involved in all that. Um, and he shook my hand and he gave me his business card, and it just said one thing. It just said show business. That's all it said. Show business. And I said, thanks, man.
That's a good
Oh,
card.
perfect.
That's
You're
good.
back in Hollywood, aren't you? um, anyway, it just ended with let's hook up, let's talk. And he was dead 4 months later.
Wow. You've mentioned Kid Congo a number of times, and I mean, that's a guy with just a tremendous career. I mean, not just with the Gun Club,
Yeah.
but then he goes on and leaves to be with the Cramps, and you
Right.
want to play with the Cramps too. I mean,
Yeah.
and then he went on to other things too. Nick Cave, and you could
Yeah.
go on
Right.
forever.
I know.
Tell me a little bit about him, because he seems to be this incredibly pervasive figure in punk rock and post punk, and it just seems like a really fascinating guy.
Yeah, he is. He's very smart. He's very funny, and but I think he's just got this amazing quality to be able to kind of roll with any punch. He's got a really good radar about knowing where to be, when to be there, and who the right people are to be around. And plus, he's really fun, and he really, uh, you know, concentrated and focused on his guitar playing. I mean, he had to in the Cramps. He knew he had to get better and better, and he could have done that in Gun Club too. Everybody was starting out, but I just think he got his creativity on stage, obviously his look, but I mean, again, this is a smart, creative, talented guy. So he just is very likable. He's very friendly. He has no attitude. Uh, and he's just like kind of the epitome of cool, on a very low key way that you're just going to immediately appreciate and immediately like. So
When a guy like that has the opportunity to join an established, iconic band like the Cramps, it's kind of hard to say no, regardless of what's going on with the Gun Club. But you have the
yeah,
opportunity to
yeah.
play with the Cramps also. Tell me about what that was like to play with Lux and Ivy, and was Kid playing with them at the time, or was had he
Kid
moved on?
was in the band.
He
Yes.
was. So What
Yeah.
was what was that experience like with the Cramps?
Well, now, would that be before the initiation ceremony or after? Because I just remember something with a lot of baby oil, and no.
What is this?
we
What is
we
it? A Diddy freak off
Yeah,
in the
Katie's
'70s?
name was mentioned. He didn't even exist yet. It was just a weird kind of thing. I don't know what to make of it still. Um, no, we would joke about that because Lux and Ivy, they first lived in this apartment in Hollywood, and it's like nobody ever went over there. And then they got this little house up in Glendale, and nobody ever went over there. And we always just kind of joke that it's probably this really spooky, but the reality, it was probably full of Tupperware, a few vintage posters, and a lot of vinyl.
And a lot of
So
records, right?
I mean, yeah, a lot of records. But no, it was Ivy, of course. She's the one that would always do the outreach, and so I just kind of focused on her. Lux was always a little bit aloof and sort of out of the picture just a bit. Nice though, friendly, but never quite connected. And I think, I don't know, that's just Lux kind of having to be way. You know, I had to just like I had to, as a drummer, really focus on Jeffrey to know what we're going to do in a song, because a lot of my cues came from Jeff,
Yeah.
not from the bass, not from the guitar, but vocal cues. And I never really knew when Jeff might give me a vocal cue. He could be lying on the stage, rolling around and mumbling. That's not a cue. I had to listen for the cue that might come out very muddled, whatever it might be. When I heard it, boom, the whole band was back in
Right.
the song, like Ivy and Preaching Blues, songs like that. He could really stretch it out. So I figured, well, you know, I've done my boot camp for Lux, because Lux would kind of do that a little bit, but at least he was standing up, and you know, it was pretty clear, pretty easy to hear him. But I still needed to connect that way, and rehearsals were really good. They were really easy. You know, they were, and Ivy just could not have been nicer.
Yeah.
Absolutely cool. Said she complimented me a lot, and did tell me when the whole little thing that we did was over, that she wished that you know, I could have continued to play with them longer, because I just tried to copy Nick. I love Nick Knox, not just what he played, but you know, his look, just everything about the guy. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to try and reinvent the wheel here. It's the Cramps. It should stay simple anyway. And the last thing I'm going to do is be drummer dude and come up with a solo in the middle of, you know, Human Fly or something. Don't you dare make that mistake. I couldn't play a solo anyway, but so I just loved kind of staying locked into that beat and that groove that they created. And I think that's what Ivy liked a lot about it too. But it was really fun. I mean, we did some live shows, and then we went to A&M Studios. They had some time available, so we went over there and recorded. I think it was 5 tracks that eventually found their way onto one of the double albums. I can't remember which ones they were. They released 2, I think. And but you know, I mean, that was easy and fun to do. Like a whole.
Ivy is like one of those bucket list interviews I would love to do. I know she doesn't do anything anymore.
Yeah, well, I said I'm afraid so. She's just walled off. And
Yeah.
what the deal is, I have talked to her since Lux's passing a couple of times, and not initiated by me, but we were at a gathering and she was there. The last one was probably 6 years ago, so it's been a while. And again, very cool, very nice. I don't know the whole story, but I think she probably for a little while was back and forth on it. I'm not sure what to do. I'm certainly not going to play again, but am I going to be involved in one capacity or another, you know, with something? Because God, you know, the ideas were flowing through my head, probably a lot of other musicians. How can I get Ivy to come out and do a song, you know, or something? And so I just recently did a little looking into this, and it's true. She has no public face at all. She's got a couple of relatives that kind of tend to that for her if and when it's necessary. And I think for her, she just got to a point fairly quickly, got to the point where she was like, you know, I'm just going to cut the whole thing off. I mean, I'm literally just going to stop.
Yeah.
That was, you know, the beginning and ending of the Cramps was my entire expression, my entire universe with music. What else could I do? You know, and then beyond that, I don't know. Maybe her and Lux said, look, if one of us goes, you got to quit. You know, who knows? But I was surprised, to be honest, that she's so loved and highly regarded. And again, just like the epitome of cool that, but maybe, you know, she just didn't want to walk down the street as Ivy. And
yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, if Tex Mosley could make that one happen, I'll give him that finder's fee.
No, no kidding, man.
Yeah, I know. That would be amazing. I find this story to be kind of interesting. The first band that you joined in Los Angeles is the Bags. And and I find the Bags to be a really interesting, kind of mysterious story, because this band was so damn good and recorded so little that
Yeah, I know.
it's
Just
almost
one.
it's almost a shame. It's it's Alice, it's Patricia Morrison, and really there's only like one real single to kind of remember what that band was all about. There's Survive and
Yeah,
Babylonian Gorgon. I think it's like one of the great lost punk classics ever recorded. I think it's
yeah.
like one of
It's
the
kind of a
best
fun
songs.
song.
It's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
it's a song that I think had the potential to be completely timeless, and unfortunately, because there wasn't an
yeah.
album released by the Bags,
Right.
it may have gone
Yeah.
somewhat, unrecognized. But my God, what a great damn song that was!
Yeah, thanks, man. I mean, I like that song too, and I liked it because it was a very melodic, structured song,
Yeah,
and uh, written by Craig Lee, the rhythm guitar. He wrote most of the songs, and he crafted a song that was fun to play. It was easy to play, which is good for me because everything else wore my poor little spaghetti arms out. That's but they quickly got bigger because they had to.
they had to,
But
of course.
yeah, no choice, that or die. But Danger House just didn't have the money to put out an album for any one band, and it's really a shame because man, they were so creative. That from the artwork, the graphics, the packaging, trying to find good studios to put these bands in. Geza X, who produced a lot of things, and he did a really good job on that. We had people in place because the industry in our backyard did not give a shit, and they didn't even hang out. They weren't even interested in knowing what we were doing because when the checks just keep coming in from the new Eagles release, you don't care. We just, even though the industry again was right in our backyard, every talented producer, whatever, was right there. Um, Danger House, if they had just gotten some financing or some money somehow, a leg up to cross that last line, they could have been a serious record label that put all these bands out. They loved everything about what they were doing. It was all really good, really cool. And but we didn't have that. So the Bags, unfortunately, were just never able to cross um, into any territory that that might have ended up with an actual record deal. I mean, it wasn't going to happen, but I feel like it's a shame because the songs that Craig wrote were actually quite distinct. They were fully developed songs, punk-ish, right? Of
Right.
course, but I think that would have developed over time. But the band personalities just kind of fell apart. There's a lot of egos.
I'm
So
sure it's just a shame that the only document of that band is that single and the appearance
yeah,
and decline of Western civilization, and that was after Patricia had left the band. So I mean,
right.
people never really got a chance to see what the Bags
I
were
know.
all about. And
I
Alice
know. Yeah,
did
sad.
other things, but I mean to not have more of that is really kind of sad in a lot of ways.
I wish. Yeah. I mean, we did one. We opened for Iggy Pop in Seattle in 1978, and that was the extent of our tour. And that was a really fun show. Iggy could not have been a nicer guy, sitting in his chair backstage, surrounded by women. It's like all the guys would just sort of politely back up until they backed up all the way out the door because there's Iggy, there's the smile, and there's the women around him. It's like, well, okay, I guess I got no business being here. It's not going to do me any good because Iggy Pop is over there without his shirt on, sitting in the throne, and we're just some guy in another band. I'm just going to leave now. Thanks.
And now when Iggy takes his shirt off, everyone's saying, "Please put the shirt back on."
Yeah, put it back on, dude. Come on. A white t-shirt would be so cool. Be just fine. Don't do that. I saw him recently and it was like, ah man, I don't get it. I don't know what's going through his head. But you know,
But he's Iggy Pop.
but he's Iggy
that's
Pop.
it.
Yeah.
He
I do
will,
know he was a Gun Club fan, so at least there's that.
yeah. It's so funny when you look at how many people are in that scene in Los Angeles, how far the tentacles reach. I mean, it's everyone from
Yeah.
the Circle Jerks, the Damned, the Sisters of Mercy.
Yeah.
You can go on forever.
Right.
You sometimes forget. I think fans really do forget. This is a very small community of artists, and everyone
Yeah,
seems
it
to be
was.
just a few steps away from being connected to everybody.
Yeah, I know. No, you're so right. And it's kind of amazed me over time, especially now to look back on it and I spend a lot of time recently, the last pre-COVID, and then now, going out to see young bands play and supporting them, and I'm just I, I'm just amazed at how much they know
Hmm.
about things, and of course they I mean I have they all love Gun Club, and they tell me things I didn't even know. They tell me what I did back in the day. It's like, so I love supporting them. I love telling them, encouraging them. You can't give up. You standing on this Los Angeles sidewalk is the same sidewalk I stood on 45 years ago. We're all part of this same extended family. It doesn't end. And, I tell them Los Angeles is not going to help you. Anything success you have here is in spite of Los Angeles because they're ready to shut the club down. They're ready to close this. They're ready to knock that building down. This is nothing but a gigantic real estate development. It's not a city. But I mean, I'm not trying to get political about it. But my point is just keep doing what you're doing. There's always going to be a venue. There's always going to be somebody hustling it, opening a place here, a place there. There's tons of places to play here now. It's amazing. I mean, it's amazing. But I'm just so impressed with these people and how much they know and how much they love getting on stage with instruments, playing those instruments. And damn, there's some talented people. Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Just talent. They know how drummers. I met so many young drummers and I've seen them play and I'm like, oh dude, and they'll tell me, oh, look, it's Gun Club drum. I'm like, stop. You could play circles around me, man. I was not, I just like to lock in a groove. That was it. That's all I could do. But you and this guy and that person and that woman, I mean, it's really impressive. And I felt like that's how I can give back
Well,
is to,
I think when it comes to young drummers, I mean, I think they can identify the fact that okay, that technically speaking, they may be more advanced than some guy from 40
yes,
years ago, but you originated those parts, and those were creations that came from you and
that's true.
within that band. And for anyone who says like, well, Ringo's not that great, the hell he wasn't that great. I mean,
Oh, he was
he
quite good.
maybe
Yeah.
the most underrated drummer of all. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
guy played on
Quite good.
dozens and dozens of number one hits. I mean, that just doesn't happen because you
Yeah.
suck.
Well, he just had an amazing ability, not just to again lock in on a rhythm, and his timing was perfect.
Yeah.
But as superficially simplistic as Beatles songs, most Beatles songs were, especially in the beginning. I mean, I know they got more complicated, but there's still a very subtle, very nuanced way of approaching that on a drum set. And you can just sit back there and play nothing, or you can sit back there and kind of emphasize this, just emphasize that, and just do this. Man, that's difficult. That's talent, and especially if you do it in a way that does not step on the song or step on this part, even a transition. Ringo Starr just covered all the bases.
Yeah.
And I of course was a Beatle fan when I was younger. I have listened to them now really, but I mean I was familiar with everything he did, and looking back on it, it's like the guy never made a mistake. I can't remember a song I've heard that Ringo played on that sounded like Ringo stepping out of place or
Right. Right.
trying to be a drummer dude. I mean he just so enmeshed and integrated into the song. That's talent. That's real talent.
You know,
So
at some point you decided to kind of walk away from music, and then I think you did maybe one of the most punk rock things I've ever heard ever, and that was to become a stockbroker. Uh, I don't know how you
that's not walk away. That's run away.
that's bulldozing right through the through the wall.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that, because I mean, for most people here, you went into to become a stockbroker is about the most abrupt career change maybe of all time.
Well, okay. So there's a part of me. Human beings, we're all complicated, and we have many different likes and dislikes. I, when I left LA, my girlfriend at the time, her family, she was from Chicago suburbs, and her mother just was such an incredibly nice, generous woman. Her parents were divorced, but her mother lived, but she was one of the people who had gotten polio in
Mm.
the early 60s or late 50s. I don't remember. And it was kind of minor at first, and it sort of got worse until she was eventually confined to a wheelchair. And her condition had gotten considerably worse at one point. They found out that a lot of people who originally got it 20, 30 years into the future would actually almost suffer the same symptoms as when they first got it.
Hmm.
So the rehabilitation and therapy in the meantime, for a lot of these people, was being destroyed because it was almost like they were getting it all over again. And that's kind of what was happening to her mother. And so we went to visit, and that visit turned into, well, why don't we just stay here? And I'm like, oh my God, no. I don't know anything about Chicago, except that she's from there. And and so after I accepted it and managed to survive through my first winter there, and I don't care what anyone says, that's an accomplishment.
It is. I've been to Chicago many times. That is a
Yeah.
hard winter to deal with.
When I'm standing out there waiting for a bus and the sign up above says 11 degrees below zero, and it's 7 in the morning and you're waiting for the bus, that is, sorry, that's tough.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, that's where you are. So, deal with it. So I just thought, you know what, if I'm going to be here and we're going to be here, and she was going back to school, because we talked about this. I said, well, I'm just going to make a clean break. And I don't want some crap job. I actually had a job at Blockbuster Video for about 3 months when I first got there. So,
and every brokerage firm is hiring from Blockbuster.
Yes, of course. What was your training? Blockbuster. Come on, whatever. What do you want? But at the time, I mean, I went to college for a little bit, and then I didn't finish. And but at that time, we're talking mid 80s. I mean, there was just such a craziness going on. You could talk your way into a job if you were good and you had a decent suit on. And I talked my way into that job. Now, it wasn't like I was going to, Merrill Lynch or anything, because I had to pass a test to get into Merrill Lynch, which I took that test. But I did have to become a Series 7 registered rep. The 8-hour test, I took that.
Right.
I passed it. And that was, some intense studying. I had to become an insurance producer in the state of Illinois. Took that test, passed it. So I had all these, things. And the first day on the job, and it was downtown Chicago, the Quaker Oats building. And they basically, there's a desk, there's a phone book. Get to work. That was it. Open the phone book and start calling people. And you're going to do that all day long. You're just going to call people.
Or
and
trial by fire.
To sell them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the problem was that was difficult enough. But it was a very small investment firm, that was trying to grow. And I liked the guys who were running it. And I had 3 or 4 other brokers. And I it was just one of those things where, man, it's like you're battling a tsunami trying to convince people. No. I used to work at Blockbuster. You want my advice about all your money and all your retirement. Yeah, you want to listen to me, and you want to give me some of it.
Right, and while you consider what to do with your money, here's a copy of Fire of Love.
Yeah, right. Yeah, at least by that, I might actually make some commission here.
Right.
So anyway, it didn't last very long, and I did get a great opportunity at American Express when my girlfriend at the time, we were trying to figure out where she was going to go to school. We finally left, and it was in Silicon Valley, 1980. Let's say about 1988 or 9, right before the computer thing exploded.
Right.
And I could have been an investment advisor in Silicon Valley. No better placement for somebody. You didn't even have to go to college for that. Just be there, right. Watch this thing happen, and then just start, pick out your yacht. But my girlfriend at the time didn't didn't want to go to school there, and so I had to turn that opportunity down. I do
Oh.
regret that. That's one of the things I kind of regret. Like Redwood City, right there on the bay, it would have just been like, you know what? You go to school, and I'm going to sit right here. And of course, I didn't know what Silicon Valley was going to become.
Sure,
So.
but in hindsight, that's when you start thinking, maybe we should start seeing other people.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think this relationship is going to work.
It's like, yeah, this is bad. So anyway, that's about as far as that lasted,
Yeah.
and it's a bit of a disappointment to me. I think I could have been good because I just like talking to people, I like supporting and helping people, and I really like to make those connections with people. And when it comes to money, not that I'm some financial genius, I'm certainly not that, but it's not really about the money at a certain point.
Yeah.
It's just about creating a relationship and a bond with people, creating that trust. And it's like, no, I'm not going to let you. I'm not going to screw this up. Your success is also mine. It's kind of pinned to it. So I think I could have done okay. That's as far as it went. And then I went back to Blockbuster. And from there,
that
the
worked
rest
out
is
pretty good for them. Terry, this has been great. I really appreciate the time today. And if you see Tex, thank him for this because it's been a lot of fun.
Oh, I'll see him. Yeah,
Please
he's
do.
playing in a couple of days. So
That'd be great.
I'll play him.
Terry,
Thanks,
great,
Mike. Yeah, I really
great to meet you.
appreciate it too.
Have a good night tonight.
Yeah, great to you too, man.
The name of Terry Graham's book is called Punk Like Me in Hollywood, 1977 to 1985. You should also check out his new podcast, Electric Angel Lounge, now on YouTube. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can email me at bags@rock102.com. I'd love to hear what you think. Thanks for Metro Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram of Chicopee for their support. But most of all, thanks to you for listening to Baxie's Musical Podcast.